Hello and welcome to another episode of Artist Spotlight, the podcast. I'm your host, Mitch Stringer, and I am joined today by a true artist. Marco Ibanez is a Maryland-based boudoir photographer who was kind enough to invite me down to his studio to sit and have a conversation about what really I can only describe as the artistic blending of light, shape, interaction in a way that produces really incredible images. And it was just a pleasure to see Marco, to talk about his philosophies and the way in which he makes images. He is an author. He's also a workshop leader, and I definitely encourage you to check out his work. It is really something really very unique and special at MarcoIbanezPhotography.com. He's also on Instagram at Marco Ibanez Photo. Really, really special work. It's unique and really relies so heavily not only on the creativity he has and the skills he has from a photography perspective, but also the interpersonal communication between he and his subjects, building a comfort level, and really allowing people to be their very best. And it becomes clear during my conversation with him that that is central to the work that he does, is having people feel really, really good about themselves and putting themselves forward in a way that they're comfortable with and that they really, really want to do. So just an absolute pleasure talking with him. As always, the podcast is brought to you by our friends at the Maryland Photography Alliance. You can see everything that they have going on, from contests to events and in person or online, and just a lot to see at mdphotoalliance.org. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. But in the meantime, I ask you to sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Marco. So I have the pleasure today to sit here with boudoir photographer Marco Ibanez in his phenomenal studio in downtown Baltimore. Marco, this space, even I'm getting comfortable for my boudoir photo. It's just, how did you lay out the space that you have and make it so comfortable for clients when they come in?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me, for doing the interview. The space, I designed the space with that in mind, because I do boudoir shoots, which are very personal, very intimate. And so I wanted a place that would make people feel, warm, welcome. And so with that in mind, I selected the colors, the decoration, and everything else. So the feedback I get from people actually is exactly what you say. It's very welcoming, it's very warm. I feel already, happy in this place. So it works great for these kind of photos, for sure.
Yeah, it really is a great space. We hear so much about travel photography, sports photography, wildlife photography, nature photography, and we do hear about boudoir photography, but I think it is one of the fields of photography that the average person probably does not pursue. It's just not top of mind. And it's something that is certainly your specialty. You're an award-winning photographer. You hold workshops all over the world. So you know this as well or better than anybody else. What do you think is, I won't say holds back people, but why do you think that it's not as much of maybe a go-to as some of these other, maybe more accessible forms of photography?
I would say is the most difficult part of boudoir photography is that you have to work in very specific ways with people, right? It's not like, for example, if you want to do landscape, you don't need to interact with anybody. You can just go by yourself and take the photo, But with boudoir photography, it requires actually special kind of relationship to build more of a relationship with the client. That, and also I would say you have to develop some specific skills for this type of photography. Posing, for example. Understanding posing, because everybody is different in terms of their insecurities. So you have to work with the insecurities of your clients work with their body type, work with some constraints they may have. Sometimes they have mobility constraints, for example. So all these things make it a little difficult to for somebody that doesn't know anything to begin in the boudoir industry.
Just to kind of take you back a little bit, I know that you had interest at one point in wedding photography,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
and then that interest evolved into what you do with boudoir. But what's your earliest recollections of photography, whether it's as a kid or a young adult? How did you pick up a camera for the first time?
I always liked art in general since I was a kid. Either I was drawing something or playing an instrument, listen to music. In photography, was one of those things. I think my first camera was when I was 15 or 16. I had a Canon camera, film camera, and I didn't know what I was doing, of course. And I bought it from someone, a friend of a friend that was selling this camera, and it had a 70 to 100 millimeter lens, which was not ideal for much of the things that I thought I was going to do, but is what I got, and I felt like a professional photographer with that camera. It was really heavy, and it was kind of funny because I would bring it anywhere that I will go. It wasn't too helpful sometimes, but that's my first recollection of me doing photography. And then after that, I will I think I studied a couple of courses locally in photography in general, how to develop film, that kind of stuff, but never pursue photography as a means of doing it professionally, right? That came later in my life, but that was probably my first connection with photography. And I actually never it was something, photography was something that was always next to me. Like, I will buy cameras. I was always interested in what is the newest camera, and the lens, which lens should I use, and the technology and everything. But I never pursue it as a profession up until later in my life.
Something that I know you have sort of come to now is something that I think the photographers listening to us could benefit from, which is you're something of a minimalist in terms of gear. So if a person is a photographer now, or they would like to become a photographer, and they say, well, what sort of equipment do I need? Do I need to buy more gear to be able to pursue boudoir photography, portraiture, these sorts of things? Maybe talk about what your, if we were in England, we'd say kit, here we'd say gear, consists of, because it just I think shows how accessible portraiture and boudoir photography are without making a big financial investment.
Yeah, that's correct. I use for most of my photos a full frame camera with a 50 millimeter 1.4 lens. That's it. I don't bring anything else to my shoots. I shoot with natural light. However, that's not how I began. I began, when you begin, normally you don't have a good understanding of what are the things that work. And so at the beginning, I was in a race of buying as much equipment as I could. Like, I would buy the latest. At one point, I had like 5 cameras that I would bring to my shoots. I will bring all these 5 cameras. Like, I will bring my full frame, I will bring a 3/4, I will bring a Polaroid, and a couple of other cameras with different lenses, 70 to 200, wide lenses, 17 to 35, 50, 85. I mean, a lot of equipment I will bring to my shoots. And also, I also, at the beginning, I was shooting with soft boxes and strobes and flashes. Very complex, very complex. Sometimes we think that equipment is going to improve our images. So the more equipment we get, the better our pictures are going to come out. But I think that is, well, definitely that's not true. We kind of try to blame the equipment for our lack of skill, right? So that's what we normally do, especially when we are beginning as photographers. So what I would say is, you don't need too much to take a good photo. Actually, some of the photos I take with my iPhone are fantastic. I really like them. And so you don't need too much to begin. I would say for people that are getting interested in doing boudoir or any type of photography, just buy something that allows you to do manual, to manual aperture, ISO, and speed, and that should be enough to begin. And instead of buying equipment, invest your money in education. Try to learn from either yourself. There's a lot of resources out there, especially YouTube, for example. You can watch videos on how to do different things. But also, my recommendation is if you want to save time, right? Which is very important. So if you want to save time, attend workshops, attend conferences, talk to the photographers you admire. Maybe they have one-on-one mentorships, or that's going to help. That's going to help you a lot, and also save you a lot of time. So if I was going to begin this all over again, like 10 years ago, that's what I would do differently, because I learned everything basically on my own, and it was a long process, right? Trial and error, figuring things on my own, and it was a long process. Some of the people I mentor, for example, they achieved the results that I achieved I achieved the results that the people that I mentor achieve in. They do it. If I did it in 5 years, they do it like in 6 months.
Sure, right? Yeah, the learning curve. They get up the curve quick.
Exactly, and it's insane that I think if I would have known this before, for sure I would do that. Right. So that would be my recommendation. That don't think that a better camera or a better lens is going to improve significantly your photos. I mean, they will improve somehow, because it's probably better to use a full frame than to use a crop sensor. If you want to get maybe a DOF that is a little better, or this lens. But honestly, it's not going to make much of a difference unless you're doing something specific. But in most cases, the equipment is not going to make you a better photographer. What is going to make you a better photographer is developing your skills, so understanding light, composition, color, how to handle clients, relationships, how to build relationships with people. Those are the things that are going to make a difference if you want to be a professional photographer.
That's a real good segue into my next question, which is, when you talk about less is more, from a gear standpoint, I think something that you probably have to pack a whole lot of is comfort level, because coming into the boudoir field of photography as the photographer, as a subject who's coming in to be photographed, how to interact with those subjects, maybe talk about, from the photographer's perspective, how to early on get comfortable in your own skin, communicating, working with, directing a subject, and then how to maybe get that subject to just be a little bit more comfortable with something that's outside of their day-to-day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, that not too many people have asked me about how you as a photographer become comfortable. And I think that's very important because if you don't feel that you can deliver what is being asked, um, your client is not going to feel as comfortable with you because you're going to be like doubting yourself, making pauses, and if you look like you're not in control of the situation of the shoot, then your client is going to feel uncomfortable, right? So I would say for you to be comfortable in your skills, you practice. I mean, that's the only thing. Practice and practice and practice more. I think consistency is one of the things that is going to separate or separates the beginner from the professional. Consistency in your photography, in being consistent in every way, taking photos, learning, all those things. So the more you practice something, the better you're going to become at it. So I would recommend that for people, but always, it's not practicing by, just for practicing, but practice and try to get better at it. So see what are or look for the mistakes every time, and then try to improve that for the next time you shoot. And again, and repeat and do the same, the same, the same. The next time you shoot is going to be a little better than the one before, right? So that's how you become better in terms of your skills. But now with clients, how to make them feel comfortable is something that begins way before the shoot. Uh, Something I always tell people, for somebody to book you as their photographer, they have to feel kind of like they know you already, right? And that's a level of comfort, right? So my clients come to shoot with me already feeling a little comfortable, right? And then, but it's not only that; it's also the way you talk to the client for Boudoir. I'm saying, no? The way you talk to them, the words you use are also important. The way you behave, even the clothes you wear, it all kind of influences your client's behavior a little. So my objective with my clients is to associate as many positive feelings as possible before the shoot, during the shoot, so I can connect. So for them, the thing that I want the most with my clients is for them to feel as comfortable as possible during the shoot, because the more comfortable they are, the better the pictures are going to come out. So so before the shoot, there's some things that you do to make them feel comfortable, and during the shoot is the same, although they're feeling comfortable and looking comfortable are two different things, right? There can be people that feel comfortable but they don't look comfortable in the photos, and the other way around. A lot of people come here to the studio and most people are nervous at the beginning, but I make them look I don't know, comfortable, but I make them look like they are comfortable. I mean, when they look at my photos, for example, in my website, people tell me, I want to look like these people, and I say, okay, yeah, all these people that you see on my website is their first time doing a boudoir shoot, and they always tell me, oh, no way. I say, yes, don't worry, because I will give you all the directions you need. So, for example, one of the things I do is I always begin with them laying on the bed with their eyes closed, because if they're not doing something that is too much. I mean, they're just laying on the bed, so they're relaxing, and I ask them to close their eyes, and they're not looking at me. They're not in a position where it's too weird, or I play some music. I make the lights a little. I how you say this? I manage, or no, not manage, but I handle. No, I control light. Right, I control light in a way that is very. I don't know the word.
Probably makes it a very comfortable environment.
Yeah, but it's not like, it's very non-threatening, I would say, to them, right? So that's the first thing I do with them. Close eyes, laying on the bed. They don't have to do much, and I do this specifically because I want them to kind of get used to the situation. So the first few minutes for everybody is going to be a little awkward. So it's going to be awkward for them. It's awkward for me as well, because it's the first time, we're doing something like this, even though I have done it hundreds of times. But still, with somebody new, I don't know how they're going to react. We're getting to kind of know each other a little better. So it's a process. So after the first 10, 15 minutes, normally people kind of loosen up and feel a little more, daring, or, a little more comfortable with the situation. And normally that's when, the photos come better, because I want them to show true emotion. I want them to be comfortable enough to pose, to, for example, laugh, but naturally. I don't say, smile, for example. I never say that, because I don't want a forced smile. I say things that make them smile, and that's when I take the photo, for example, if I want them to smile, right? So that will be, in general, how I approach my clients to make them feel comfortable, and also myself.
My experience photographing for advertisements, especially when you're dealing with models who are not necessarily professional models, and even some that aren't, but I've said before that a photo shoot is almost like a living organism. The longer it goes, you start to build a rapport,
Yes.
You start to build a comfort level, and in some instances, if it's an hour photo shoot, the last 15 minutes go in like no time at all,
Yes.
and you get some of the absolute best images, and you feel like we could do another hour of this. The first 45 minutes was the warm-up. Naturally, in your field, you need to get that similar comfort level going earlier on in the process. But do you feel like it's almost like a living thing? A photo shoot kind of evolves over that hour or two?
Yeah, for sure. It depends on the client, but with most people, the last part of the shoot is a lot better than the first part. Even you can see it in their eyes. And at the beginning of the shoot, for example, I almost never ask people to look directly to the camera, because I know they're going to have this look on their face. They're like deer in the headlights, right? Like scared. But at the end, once they feel comfortable, they look a lot more confident, and that's awesome. That's great. Yeah, that's exactly what happens with boudoir shoots too.
One of the things you're talking about when you talk about comfort level is the model, the subject generally doesn't come in having this down second nature. They may have done these before, but they're not a professional model generally. So I think if the photographer is professional, just as a professional in general, appropriate, knows what to do, how to do it, why they're doing it, then it gives the subject a comfort level, like, here's this person who's going to guide me through this.
Yes.
I'm in a safe space. This person has created work I've seen previously. I like it, and they're treating me in a professional manner. And, one of the things that I think is part of that, and part of the learning curve that we've talked about a couple of times, is understanding posing. Yeah. Understanding everything from the obvious to the small. And, I have looked at a number of your images where you kind of mark up the images to make note of the back is arched, the neck is curved, the hand is laying in a certain way. And, I think it makes the difference between someone saying, do you like picture A or picture B? And they say, well, I think I like picture B. Well, why?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just looks better.
Yeah.
And it's this cumulative effect of subtle differences by someone who knows those differences. And I know, you have authored a number of books, kind of instructional books, mentoring type of books, in addition to the on-site workshops that you do. So maybe if you can kind of talk about your thought behind creating some of these, the 200 pose books. Obviously, you're not going to use 201 photo, but maybe talk about how that can help someone get up that learning curve quicker than just wondering why their subject's fingers look, in their words, weird.
Yeah,
as opposed to natural.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the reason I developed these posing guides, they were for me at the beginning. So I did it for myself because I wanted to. One thing that happened to me early was that I couldn't remember all the poses that I wanted to do, and I wanted to replicate the same pose for different people, right? And I could never remember all of them. So I began to do these posing guides for myself, where I will specify all these things that I wanted to do, that I want my clients to do, down to hand position, feet position, hair, where the light is coming from, the settings on the camera, all these things that will help me do the shoot in a more, I would say, professional way, but it was more of how I will, these posing guides are how I understand posing. So I began to create those, and at one point I, noticed that other people had the same kind of problems that I had, and so I began to offer those posing guides to other photographers. But that's how it began. And the thing is that at the beginning, I worked with a lot of models, and I was very curious about why did they do, because a professional model will pose very naturally, right? I mean, that's what they do for a living. So they know how to pose. And so I was curious about, why do you move your leg this way? I always ask them, why do you put your hair on this side? Or why do you turn this way? Or, these things. And so that helped me actually a lot to use those things with my clients, right? And of course, your clients are not professional models, but you can guide them to look like professional models. A lot of people ask me, no, but all the people you have there are models. I said, no, they're not models. They're like regular people, right? But I make them look like models, like they know what they're doing. But it's all direction from my side. So that's how I created the posing guides.
Yeah, it's interesting. I remember many years ago, there was a company called Glamour Shots. You go to the mall, you go to the shopping center, they put a ton of makeup on, tons of hairspray, and it was very unnatural, but that was someone's image of beauty, etc. One of the things that's so incredibly impressive about your work is that there really is I would use the term like a sultry glamour to the work that you do. And I think that whether you are a professional, whether you are a person who would just like very tasteful, beautiful photos done of themselves, you bring that home. And that's, whatever a person's body type is, whatever their height is, whatever their shape, their comfort level, their hair color, they bring themselves to the table, and you bring a tremendous amount of expertise to really bring out the best in them. And I think that, reading your website and feedback from clients, I think a number of them are just kind of blown away because your work with them is very collaborative. Mm-hmm. And I think that the results are things that they really feel good about. Maybe you can share some, that just whether it's post-shoot feedback, like immediately post-shoot, or once they've received the images and then they're responding to that.
So you want to know what is that they say to me, or?
Well, I can, one of the things that I could only imagine is when the last photos of the shoot are done,
yeah,
they have to let out a little bit of sigh of relief just because it's done, but they probably at that point have gone from nervous to so comfortable that they're like, wow, that was awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth. I just imagine that in that hour or 2 hours that there's almost like an evolution they go through.
Absolutely, yeah. So that's true. That happens a lot. With most clients, what they say is, I didn't think it was going to be that fun. I had a lot of fun. I felt great. A lot of people feel very empowered. A lot of my clients, they feel like they have like this confidence boost. They feel beautiful, they feel confident, they feel great, and they want to do it again. That's most people do that or feel like doing that, and I think it's fantastic. So the power of these type of photos is one of the things I like the most about doing boudoir photography, because it's something that actually can impact in a very positive way the life of my clients. Not only their life, that they feel great, but also the relationship they have with their partners. Once they feel more confident, also impacts their work, the relationship with their significant other, their kids, for example. So it's awesome to know that my work can have such a positive impact in the life of my clients. Not for everybody, because some people just do it for fun or other reasons, for other purposes. But it's awesome that happens, and that something that you create with them is so fantastic for their life. But yeah, there's an evolution in terms of how there's a transformation when before the shoot and after the shoot. A lot of times they tell me they feel like a different person, that they appreciate their body a lot better than before, that they feel more comfortable in their skin, that they're not afraid anymore of showing more skin or these things, and I think that's fantastic. I had no idea this type of photography existed before I began to do research on these things, but I think it's one type of photography that I don't know if there's any other type of photography that has this much impact on someone's life. Not even wedding photography, because this is very personal. People come here to do these shoots for very specific reasons. Normally, it's a milestone in their lives. So they're either like it's a big birthday, like 30, 40, 50. Maybe they just lost a lot of weight. They're getting married, and they want to do this as a present to their fiancé or future husband. They just got divorced, another reason. So it's transition points in their lives. Mm-hmm. And so they want to celebrate themselves, and so that's really fantastic. I really like that about what I do now.
Were there any I'll say any influences either within boudoir photography or photography in general, certain other photographers whose work that you really have admired, do admire, whether it's their style or anything like that?
Yeah, early on, I was following some photographers that I admire. One of the photographers I remember is Rachel Stevens. I don't think she is working anymore. So the type of photos she created were beautiful to me, and then later I began to follow photographers that maybe didn't do boudoir, but had a style that kind of resonated with me. Richard Tushman, for example, is one of them. He doesn't do boudoir. He does dioramas. So he create dioramas and photograph dioramas. But they are very dark and moody. So they have a lot of these kind of, when you look at their images, it's kind of weird. I mean, you feel you begin to feel things, and I love that. So Richard Tushman was one. Gregory Crutzen is another one that I really enjoy his work. So I do have some boudoir photographers that I follow and I like their work, but I would say I try not to look at the work of other boudoir photographers. My inspiration comes from more how I use light in different areas, not only other photographers that are not boudoir, but also movies, for example, composition, even, things like I love to watch or I love to the art of bonsai, the trees, Japanese trees.
Yeah.
I think the composition, because they twist, the branches and everything to create specific form.
There's a flow and a balance to it.
Exactly. Yeah. So that, for example, is a way of understanding composition. The way they use color in movies. For example, this movie that I really loved last time was Parasite. Have you seen Parasite?
I have not seen Parasite.
It's a Korean movie. It's fantastic. For me, visually, it's really great. The composition, the colors they use, everything, it flows really well. And the more you see it, the more things you find that are kind of excellent. For me, as a photographer, to see that in a movie, the way the characters are placed on the screen, the colors they use, the music they play, everything has a purpose. So that's when I take a photo, everything in the photo for me is on purpose. Like the way the hands are positioned, the way the background, the foreground, everything is not by chance that you see, things in the photo. I meant it to be that way.
Well, that's as I said earlier, that's because you're a professional. So it's intentional, anticipating a particular consistent outcome. As far as, I'm going to call these housekeeping items because I think they are probably questions that a lot of amateur photographers have. So I'm going to throw these out to you in a group, and then you can kind of answer them as you wish. So there, I think, will be some subjects who at least come in with a perception that they'd rather have black and white versus color images. Yeah. So one of the questions would be about proportion of black and white or color in terms of a final product. Another question would be around how long does a shoot go? How many different outfits or looks? Yeah. Be it, you mentioned people start off maybe laying flat on a bed, but then they may be on a sofa. There may be, so just giving a person who this is not something they've done before, kind of an idea around those few questions that they may be wondering.
Yeah. So in terms of the black and whites, I show my clients both the color and the black and white version for them to choose. So they can end up with all colors or all black and whites or combination, and that's up to them. My preference as a photographer is actually black and white. I prefer black and white because once you take the color out of the equation, for me the photos are a little more emotional because you focus on different things when there's color and when there's no color. So that's my personal preference. However, most people will choose color rather than black and white. So yeah, I show my clients both, and they can choose either or. So that's up to them. Now, in terms of what is the other question? In terms of
about how long does a shoot go, and how many different outfits might somebody wear?
Normally, I shoot for about 2 hours. Normally, that allows for 3 to 4 different outfits. I always tell people you can bring as many outfits as you wish. But I say, it's gonna take you some time to change clothes, making sure they fit correctly. So if you're doing more than four, you're gonna spend a lot of time changing and not taking photos. So three or four should be okay for a 2-hour shoot.
And are most people coming in by themselves, or are they coming in with either a partner or a good friend, or how do you kind of manage that, or is there sort of a normal situation?
Yeah, so normally during the shoot it's just the client and me during the shoot. However, I do allow them to bring people to make the company to make sure they're safe, because a lot of people, of course, have different thoughts about what the shoot is. But yeah, I allow people to come with company. I normally ask the people that come with them to wait or to come back after the shoot. There are some situations where if my client feels strongly that they need somebody there during the shoot, I allow that as well. However, I have very specific rules for the people that are staying that they have to follow so they don't interfere with the shoot. Because even, looking at them without saying anything, even, making eye contact with the client can distract the client also. So I have some very specific rules they have to follow if they want to stay.
Sure. Yeah. As a professional, you have to set a professional tone to help that client get the most out of the session.
Yes.
So I guess here's kind of my last question. It's broad, but if I'm a listener and I think this is something that I do now, boudoir photography, and I want to get better at, or it's interesting and I want to attend a workshop, whether I take it beyond the workshop much further or I just want that experience. What is a workshop like? Around how many photographers? What does that day look like? For someone who shows up with their camera and whatever else you tell them to bring. What could somebody expect?
Yeah. So normally my workshops are 1 day long. So we begin at 9:30, and by 5:30 we should. So we'll begin, and the first half of the workshop is discussing about emotions, storytelling, how to make people feel comfortable, how to use the storytelling components in your business. And then the second part is a live shoot. So we shoot with someone, so you will be shooting next to me, and I will give you the directions, and after the shoot, we'll review the images and I provide feedback and do editing. Normally my workshops are between 6 to 8 people because I like to have smaller groups. I think it works better for everybody. For me, for the people that attend the workshops, you will have enough time to ask questions, to participate. It's much better that way. When it's too many people, which I have done too, like 10 or 15, it gets a little crazy, because then if you're taking photos, everybody's like, it's a little chaotic, and so I don't like that. I prefer smaller groups for workshops.
And when you have a shoot that you're doing, and you're spending roughly 2 hours during that shoot, what sort of time post-shoot in post-production is required to produce the final images for the client to see?
I would say probably a couple of hours of my time, because right after the shoot, I select the images that I'm gonna edit, and then after that, I create. I outsource my editing, and so when I get the images back, I color correct the images, and then create a slideshow to show my client. So I'll say 2 hours. 1 hour selecting the images that I'm gonna edit, then another hour to do that color correction and create the slideshow and the things that I do to show my clients.
And would you say there's a normal number of images that the client ultimately selects and takes home?
Yeah, so most clients will choose between 30 to 40 images normally. 30 to 40. Of course, some people order more, some people order less. It's up to them. But normally I would say between 30 to 40. And I normally show them between, let's say, 70 to 100 images they can choose from. So my goal actually during the ordering appointment is, or during the shoot, is to create as many images as possible for them to choose. So it's my goal is to make it difficult for them to not choose an image. And that's what they tell me all the time. They say, Marco, you make this so difficult. I love them all. I say, yeah, oh, buy them all then. But yeah, that happens. That happens a lot.
That's great. I can imagine. So for those listeners who want to follow your work, mm-hmm. they want to consider attending a workshop, they want to understand the different publications you make available. What are the various ways that people can follow you and get in touch with you if they'd like to?
Yeah. So they can go to my website, marcoibanezphotography.com. Or my Instagram, Marco Ibanez Photo. Those are the two places where I post most of my work. I also have a TikTok account and a Twitter account. They're also Marco Ibanez Photo. And yeah, those are the places where you will find me. I normally do 2 workshops here in my studio every year during the summer, and then one in Vegas around WPPI. The Photographers Conference in Vegas. So and then after that, I do have some. They invite me to do sometimes conferences, to be a speaker at some conferences. So those I don't know when they're happening, but this year, for example, I've been in Vegas and WPPI conference, also to Nashville, and I'm gonna be in Portugal in October for the Exposure Conference, sponsored by Fujifilm and Floricolor. And then in Mexico later in November, I'm going to be doing a couple of workshops in Mexico City. So all these things you can find in my website and my social media. So if you want to attend, you can just follow me, and I will normally post these things in my social media.
That's great. Great ways to stay in touch and see all the great work that you're doing. I know that I really appreciate your time today, and I know that the listeners are going to really enjoy following you and what you do, and see either something they already do or they're interested in, or something that they may want to pursue. So, Marco, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mitch.
I hope you enjoyed my talk with Marco. He definitely covered a lot of ground and hopefully gave everyone more insight into boudoir photography and portrait photography as well, just generalized portrait photography, trying to build rapport with your subjects, which will always result in the best images possible. Some housekeeping reminders: be sure to subscribe and hopefully like the podcast. Feel free to send that out to friends and fellow photographers. Helps us spread the word, helps us move up in the rankings that those algorithms love and get more information. You can check out what I have going on either at my website, mitchstringer.images.com, or you can also check me out on Instagram at the same. See what I'm up to, see where I'm going. That's probably the latest updates on what I have happening is through Instagram. So definitely take a look when you have time. Until we are together next time, I wish you great light, great shooting, and we'll talk soon. Take care.